into something pretty interesting.
Okay.
I was looking at this social media script promoting something called the Quran New Millennium Exposition
Uh-huh.
by Paigam Mustafa.
Okay.
And it had some pretty unique takes on Islam.
Right.
It even kind of questioned whether daily ritual prayer is actually like necessary to be a Muslim.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I thought that would be pretty interesting to kind of unpack and see what their argument is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the 5 daily prayers, are one of the 5 pillars of Islam,
Right.
which, most Muslims would consider like essential practices. So,
Totally. The 5 pillars, we've talked about those before, but this exposition is saying
right.
being a Muslim is more about like embodying these like universal values
Okay.
and living a morally upright life.
Yeah.
And that the rituals are maybe not the main thing.
Interesting.
Mm.
So like they're focusing more on the moral aspect of it rather than the ritualistic.
Yeah, and they're really hitting on this idea of like high moral standards,
Yeah.
and that these are rooted in like values that all of humanity shares.
I see.
And then they get even more interesting.
Okay.
They say that Muslims existed before the Prophet Muhammad.
That's an interesting claim.
So does that mean that they were practicing Islam without like any of the rituals that we know today?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about Muslims existing before the Prophet Muhammad, we're talking about people or communities that followed a monotheistic belief system,
Okay.
but their practices may have been totally different, before the Quran was revealed.
Totally. And that's actually one of their critiques is they call ritual prayer like a routine distraction from the Quran's guidance.
Wow.
They're
Yeah.
really implying that this was something that was added later on.
Yeah, that definitely could spark some debate,
Oh, yeah.
because there are different schools of thought about, how practices have evolved over time and how to interpret scripture.
Yeah.
Some might argue that like prayer in its structure, helps focus devotion, connect individuals to a larger community.
Right.
This source seems to be emphasizing a more personal and direct engagement with the Quran itself.
Right. And less about the, going through the motions of the ritual.
Exactly.
Okay, so then they say something else that really blew my mind.
Okay.
They say that God desires service to humanity, not just worship.
Oh, wow.
Like what do you even think about that?
I mean, that's a really powerful statement. And it aligns with a lot of what the Quran actually emphasizes, and like, social justice, ethical conduct,
Right.
contributing to the well-being of others. It's
Yeah.
not just about personal piety.
Yeah.
It's about the actions you take and how you impact your community, the world around you.
So it's less about praying in a mosque and more about like actually going out and doing good in the world.
Exactly.
I see. And that kind of leads into this whole other thing that they talk about, this idea of heaven starting now.
Oh, okay.
So they're proposing that heaven is not like this far-off reward, but something that you actively create through your actions and striving for a higher moral state in this life.
So it's like a more immediate and tangible concept of heaven.
Totally. Yeah, it's less about what happens after you die and more about making the world a better place right now.
That's a really interesting perspective. It really emphasizes the idea that our actions have like ripple effects. They shape the world around us
Right.
and contribute to a kind of collective heaven on earth.
Right. So it's not just about you going to heaven. It's about making heaven for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've seen like this whole different perspective that prioritizes universal values, service to humanity,
right.
over just like strict adherence to rituals.
It really challenges us to think about, what it means to be a Muslim.
Yeah, totally. And that's kind of what makes this whole exposition so interesting, right?
Absolutely. It raises so many questions, like how does this change our understanding of faith?
Right.
What's its role in the 21st century?
Yeah, it's like, does being a good person matter more than following all the rules?
Right.
Big questions.
Yeah.
If any of this sounds interesting to you, I really recommend checking out this Quran New Millennium Exposition
Yeah.
by Paigam Mustafa.
It'll definitely give you something to think about.
It's a total mind trip.
For sure.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening.
It was a great conversation.
We'll see you next time.
Take care.
Bye.